In this first video, we're going to create our room using Archimesh. So to invoke Archimesh, we need to hit N, or we need to click there. So N, or you click here on this button. Then we have the Create menu, where we can find Archimesh. So the base element are here. I'm going to start with the room. So a room is, for now, just one wall. You can find it here. And this wall, if I expand here the size of the column, we can see the height is 2.4 meter. And then we have here a length of 1 meter. So I would like to have a wall of 4.5 meter. And then now, if I want to have another wall, I'm going to increase here the number of wall to 2. The second wall is here, 1 meter long. So here I'm going to input 6 meter point 2. This is the size of our room. From there, it's very easy to add another wall yet. And this third wall, I'm going to input a negative value. So let's put negative 4.5. And this is it. We have the base of our room. Now, if I want to close it, I can just close the wall, and it's done. Now, what we can do is add a floor and also a ceiling. We can find all our elements here: the room, baseboard, ceiling, floor. So I'm going to hide the ceiling for now to take a look at our room. As you can see, we have here a baseboard on the ground. So if I click on here, it's going to disappear. And also our ceiling is going to appear again. So that's a caveat you have to be aware of. If you untick something here and you do any change there, it's going to reset and then reappear again. So for now, I'm just going to untick the ceiling. It'll be easier to work with. Okay, so if I click here, we have our baseboard again. As you can see, our walls do not have any thickness. So I'm going to input here a thickness, and let's put 10 centimeter, so 0.1. And this is the thickness of our wall. As you can see, it made the baseboard disappear. So I'm going to increase the width of the baseboard so that it's going to peer through. And here it is. It's very thin. I think it'll be right. Okay, now I can click here on the ceiling to make it appear again. And what I could do here on the ceiling, instead of hiding it, and I don't want that because I want the ceiling to be present to contribute to the lighting. So we're going to take our ceiling and then go to here our object properties. And then we can see here the viewport display. I'm going to untwirl. And we can see here we have display as textured. Let's switch to wire. And this is it. This is our base room. So now we're going to be able to cut some opening here with doors and windows. It's time now to add some windows. So it's very easy again with Archimesh, because we have here the option in elements to add some rail windows or panel windows. So those are the windows I want to add, a panel window. Those windows are going to be added where you have your 3D cursor, which is this one. So we're going to move it using Shift and left click. I'm going to aim here, so it's going to put our 3D cursor right here. So now I'm going to click on the panel window. If you don't have access to that, you need to click on your room. So let's go, panel window, and it's been added. So by default, our panel window, you have the option here. We have different presets, and I like this one. You can choose several other. It's going to update. So let's go back to 250 by 200. And we're going to add another count here of edge count. So let's go to 4. Right. Okay, I like it. Now I would like to have more room in the top. So I'm going to add here a vCount 2. Now I have a complex window. If I want to move it, I'm going to take the window group and I'm going to move it using G or using here the 3D gizmo. So let's move it this way so that it's centered. As you can see, it's too tall. So let's go back to our room and we have here our height. I'm going to change it. So let's increase the height. All right, so something happened. We have our ceiling which has reappeared. Every time you're going to change anything here, the ceiling is going to be back. So let's disable it for now. And we will not forget to enable it again because we do need a ceiling. All right, so now we have our window and it's all fine and dandy, but there's a problem. Our window is actually not really a window. As you can see, our walls are still solid. So we need to pierce through. It's very easy because you have here this option in your room, which is auto holes. If you take a look here to your window group, you will find inside a control hole, which is this box. And this box needs to be inside here, your room. It's going to cut through. So let's go to our room and let's click on auto hole. And it's as easy as that. As you can see, now we have a bowl being applied and we can see through the window. So now we can tweak a little bit here our window group and move it this way. And as you can see, it works. So let's move it maybe more like that, so that we have our window. Now let's add the doors. So I want to have one of them here. I'm going to aim at the baseboard, right click and shift. Okay, now if I go to my room, I can click on door to add one. We have the option here to do whatever we want with the door. So I'm going to rotate it. So let's rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, now switching to the move tool, I'm going to move my door this way. I'm going to rotate the other way, holding Alt, and I'm going to try to have this point right here, right to the ground. So I'm going here on the property panels of the object. I'm going to go on Z and 0. All right, so now if I want to add a hole for that, it's the same thing as the window. You go to room and then auto hole, and it's done. We have our door. Now I can open it very easily by clicking here and using R, I'm going to open it. So you see, very easy. Escape to cancel. Okay, same thing the other way. So I'm going to right click, shift, and then we'll go to the room and add again a door. Okay, 90 degrees again. And now I'm going to take my door and let's go this way. And I want to make sure it's on the ground. So let's go to Z, 0. Now I would like to align the two doors. So let's go this way. And I'm going to see through by clicking here. And let's align it like this. Perfect. Okay, now we can add here our auto hole, going to the room and then auto hole. And we have our door, both sides. Okay, I can adjust a few things. I want to take this door, go this way, and I'm going to put it more inside like this. Okay, same thing for the other one. So I'm going to take this group. Let's go here. And that's it. Now we have our openings, our windows and our two doors. I can go back to the room and add again the ceiling. And the ceiling, let's select it and go to the properties here, object properties, then to the viewport display. I'm going to display it as wire. So it's still here, but we don't see it anymore in the viewport. Now let's add some furnitures from Blender Kit. So Blender Kit is right here. I'm going to tick here on the eye so we can see everything. Also, I would like to go to the filter here and ask only for the free stuff. Okay, so if you have a subscription, don't hesitate to use it because you will have many more assets, more interesting than the free one. But here, I just want to use the free one. And now we can make a search here. So I'm going to type in sofa so we can find a sofa. You can have more information right-clicking, see what's what, and add some description, some commentary, and so on. So here I'm looking for a sofa, and I'm looking for one in particular, this one. Okay, so I'm going to add it. You just need to click and then drag here. It's going to download. And here it is. So it's been added to our scene, and this is the sofa. So now we're going to order all this. So we have our collection with our room. Okay, so let's call this collection room. And we're going to create here a new collection, which will be here, objects. All right, and let's put it here on the scene collection so that I'll be able to put the sofa in the object. So clicking here, you can see we have some kind of rounded box around the collection icon, meaning that anything new added to the scene will be here inside the object. So this way I can filter very easily, and also the room. So I'm putting all my stuff here right beside the room because I want to create some kind of collection of items so that I'll be able to put them inside our room afterward. Let's put our furnitures into place. So I'm going to start here with our sofa. I'm going to grab here the empty. So most of the objects are driven with the empty that you can see here. And this is the object you want to grab. If you take something else, you're going to move something inside the object. So that can be fine, but here I want to place the whole thing. So I'm going to take here our empty, then going to the top view, holding Alt is going to snap to the top view. I'm going to move it using G. And then R to rotate. And I can snap it to 90 degrees, typing 90. Then, using here our move tool, I can also move it this way, if you want. All right, so this is my sofa. Now I want to put my carpet on the ground. So this is the one here. I'm going to hit period on the numpad to see that we have an empty here. And this is the one I'm going to move. Be careful about that. So let's go this way. I'm going to move it this way, then rotate 90 degrees again. And let's move it this way. Okay, so now I would like to see better all my objects. So I'm going to go here and we're going to switch the color mode to random so that we can see everything. And as you can see, we have some kind of glitch here on our carpet. This is because it's on the ground intersecting. So I'm going to take here the empty, and if we take a look here at the object coordinates, we can see on Z that it's aligned to the ground at 0, meaning that it's going to intersect. So let's move it just 1 centimeter, and now it's taken care of. All right, so moving on, I'm going to add my TV set using here my empty. I'm taking care here that this is empty being selected, and let's move it this way. So I'm going to move it, and I'm just checking here the right angle. So using R and then Z on the Z axis, and then again 90 degrees. Perfect. And then I'm going to move it like this. Okay, cool. And we are the opposite way. Yes, we are. So I'm going to hit R again, Z, and 180 degrees. Yes, that's better. Okay, moving on, we're going to put more object. So this one, for example, I'm going to hit period here on the outliner. So this is the model print, and let's move it this way. And this way, you can see we can create and move everything. So let's go with this one. Let's put it on the corner, for example. I'd like now to take this one. I'm going to move it, but I would like to put it right here. So first, I need to raise it. I mean, to make it straight. So let's use, for example, here our transform tool and moving here on the R-axis, and then holding a control, I can constrain it. So now to place it precisely, what I could do is use our 3D cursor. So holding Shift, then right click, I'm going to put it here. My object is still selected, so now I'm going to hit Shift S, and then we're going to go to Selection to Cursor. This way, we can put it on the wall. All right, so now I'm taking care. I'm just checking that we are on the right angle, and yes, it's reversed. So let's move it this way. And obviously, well, we can work on many angles. So maybe let's put it here, 90 degrees, perfect. I'm going to snap right here and move it so that it aligns with the wall. Perfect. We can move it this way, this way. It's easier to see. All right, here we have an object. I'm going to take our empty, and we have several objects here. So I would like to have this whole collection, the coffee table. As you can see, it's all of this. I would like to have this tool here, this chair, separated from this one. So one way to do it is to take the tool, and you can see there is several objects inside. So I'm going to Shift G, and we're going to use here the immediate children, so that we have the whole object selected. And now I'm going to hit M to create a new collection. And let's call it stool or chair. Okay. And we're going to now move the whole object. So here, this is the empty, and the new object is here, chair. So I'm going to move the object here inside the chair. And you can see we have everything now selected. So if I want to select this object now, hitting period on the numpad, I'm going to take this coffee table, and we're going to move it. So I would like to move it, for example, over there. And now we can take here our tool and move it, for example, this way. All right, so I think I like it. We're almost finished. Actually, I don't think I want to see this one. So I'm going to take it, and then using here coffee table, I'm just going to put it aside. Okay, as you can see, we still have the two objects all together. So I'm going here to select this empty. Okay, and this empty is the children of this one. So I want to take care of that. I'm going to Alt P, and clear the parent and keep transformation. So now it's totally separated. I can move it freely without moving the other one. So let's put it maybe here. And I think for this corner, I'd better use this one. So period, this is the coffee table, perfect. Let's move it this way, then rotate 90 degrees. And I think it's better. We have our chair, so let's take it. And I'm going to move it this way, for example. Rotate. And now we just have this here shelf. I'm going to take it and let's move it, for example, right here. Okay, now to see better how everything is placed, what I can do is go inside and on your view menu, navigation, you have the option to walk navigation. So clicking here, now I can move it as a first person. Using my arrow key, I'm moving around and I'm looking at around me with the mouse. So escape here if you want to do it again. And if you want to have easy access to this, so go to navigation and you can right click here on the walk navigation and add it to your quick favorites. So that's something I've already done. Now using Q, I can enter the walk navigation and easily move around and see if it looks all right. So this is a great way to see the space around you and tell yourself, is it okay? Is it realistic? So I think I like it. And we have our room filled with furnitures. When I'm finished, I'm going to hit enter to leave the navigation. Okay, now we want to create some cameras to have some viewpoint. So here in our outliner, we have all the objects inside a collection. I can load and load very easily. It's an easy way to see the empty room. And I want to click here on the scene collection, so we have the rounded rectangle around it. So if I create a new collection, it will be here. Let's call it cams for camera. And this is the active collection. So if I hit Shift A and add a camera, it will be living here. So our camera have been created where our 3D cursor is. I don't want that. I want to set it to view this view. Okay, so holding the camera and Control Alt 0, we're going to frame it right here. If I exit it, we can see this is our camera. And hitting 0 on the numpad, we're going to frame it. So what we can see inside the rectangle is the actual view. If I click on the camera, I can reduce here the focal length. If I just zoom out from the viewport here using the mouse, you will see that I'm actually not moving the camera. I'm just zooming in and out and still keeping the frame here. So this is where I want to do that. And let's choose, for example, 28 millimeter. Okay, now what we see outside here is not the frame. You can check it here using on the viewport display, and you have the option of the pass-partout. If I just unclick or increase the opacity, we can see better our framing. Also, I can go to View here, and on the cameras, Frame Camera Bounds. This way I can see it better. So now if I want to have a better framing of everything, I can use directly the coordinate from the camera using here the object properties. And for example, we can put the rotation X on 90 degrees, Y 0 degrees, and Z, let's put minus 180. So this way we can see it better. And now we can just move the location and try to fix the framing to have something more interesting. Or I could use G, using the camera, which is selected. G is going to move around. If I hit Z, and again Z, so twice, I can zoom in, zoom out. Actually not zoom in, I'm going to move the camera. So this is a way to create your view. A third option is to use an option using N or clicking here. So N, and we can see here in the view menu, we have the option camera to view. And here I can right click and add it to quick favorites. So now if I'm going to be the camera to view, if I just orbit around, I'm going to move the camera. As you can see here, the coordinates are moving. Using Q, I can just unlock the camera to view, and now I'm going to move out. And still, if you want to move more freely the camera, so I'm going to use Q to lock the camera to view, then Q again to use the walk navigation. So this way I can frame it better and create some kind of point of view, like this one, for example. Okay, so this is one camera. I'm using Q to unlock the camera to view. I'm going to create another one. Let's go, for example, here. And I say I'd like this viewpoint here. So let's put it like that. I'm going to create a new camera, Shift A. And this new camera, to make it active, I'm going to click here. Okay, so this makes the active camera, and we can check this on the scene properties. You see camera 1. If I click here, this is now the camera. So I'm going to be this one, and I want to fix the point of view right here. So Control Alt 0, and again I have created a camera. So here I'm going to reduce the focal length. Let's go to 28 millimeter, and I'm going to use Q, lock the camera to view. I'm going to use the walk navigation so I can more easily frame everything, and maybe we're going to try to be something like that. Okay, and let's go now to the object properties and maybe try to fix here our rotation on X 90 degrees so that we have here the straight lines. And let's move it down, something like that. Okay, so you could create several other cameras. That's what I'm going to do. So we have several viewpoints that we will be able to use later. Now we're going to light this scene. So let's switch to Blender to cycles here in our render engine, and I want to put the device on GPU compute. I'm going to disable the open shading language, we don't need it, and make sure in the edit preferences that in system you're using optics if you can. So if you have an NVIDIA graphic card, it's better to use optics. Otherwise, you would maybe use HIP or one API, depending on your system. So here, because it's a PC running NVIDIA graphics, I'm going to choose this one. And here, of course, we're going to choose the device GPU compute so that it's fast. Now, if I hit the render here, which is the final render, we do have something, but it doesn't look like much. So let's make a few changes. I'm going here to increase the size of this window. I'm going to dezoom a little bit. And now here we're going to switch the working space, clicking here, to the shader editor. And then we're going to go to the world editor. So here we can see that we have a background which is being output to the world output. We also have this here. If you go to the world output, when you can see the background, same thing. So first thing first, we can change here the color to pure white. It's going to flood the room with lighting. Also, I'm going to go to the render engine again and go to the sampling. I would like here to have a noise threshold. Let's switch it to 0.1. And also, I would like to turn on the denoise, and I'm going to use optics starting at 100 samples. Finally, I'm going here to hide my interface so we can see clearly the whole room. I can switch very easily the camera by going there and changing the camera here, or clicking there. So we can see in the back of the room, it's very dark, of course, because there is no light coming. So let's concentrate first on this view. We could use a sky texture. So here I'm going to use Shift A and use sky texture. So the sky texture is going to work very well if I connect it to the color. We have this effect. And now if I'm going to turn here the sun rotation, at some point we're going to see the light enter the scene. So let's go, and here you can see it. As soon as we have light entering directly into the room, everything is much brighter. I make sure in the render settings, at the very bottom, we want to be on filmic view. Filmic view is going to make sure that our highlights here are not burnt. Now with my sky texture, what I could do is change the sun elevation, or on the opposite, to decrease it. The lower the sun, the warmer the light entering. So let's switch something like that. You can see the shadows are very crisp. We can change this by using the sun size. And the higher the number you get here, the softer the shadow. If we take a look at the other side, we can see very clearly the light coming in. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And anyway, we'll have to take care of what we see outside the window. I would like to add at some point some curtains too. So there is another way to add light is to use instead environment texture. So I'm going to add one, Shift A, and then search. We're going to type in environment texture. So this one is going to be HDRI. I'm going to open it. And here in your text folder, we have a few examples that are taken from Texture Haven. This is this website, Polyhaven, and if you go to HDRI, you will find a lot of HDRI you can use. Here we're going to use mostly outdoor lighting, and we have all those examples. And we could use, for example, natural light. And what you're going to see is, what you're going to look for is here, of course, the image, but especially here, the shadow and illumination on the balls here. So for example, this one, sunflowers, is very contrasty. If I click on it, we can see we have 23 EVs. So that's a lot of dynamic range. And that gives us this very sharp shadow. You could also look for sunrise, sunset, HDRI to have some interesting color. For example, this one. And here you would look for the EV. You can see we have 12 EV only, so it's much less contrasty. And we can take a look here also to the lighting of this picture, of this one. And when you're finished, you're just going to download. So here I'm going to load, for example, this one, which is the sunflower pure sky. And of course, we're going to connect it. Connect it, of course, on the color. And if I want to orient this picture, we're going to use Control T. Control T is going to add a mapping node. And this is because we use here in Edit Preferences, the add-on, we're we're using Node Wrangler. See more about the video at the beginning of the course. So here, if I change here the Z rotation, we can see the lighting comes from the HDRI. We have a much more natural sunlight coming in, and the lighting is, I think, overall more interesting. And of course here you could change with another lighting, for example this Venice sunset. And here we have a very different lighting. We can change here. And you can see the light coming here. And depending on your viewpoint, we could change the light again. Here I'm putting the light on the back of the scene for a very interesting mood. So let's go back to our front-facing camera. Or we could use, again, another one. For example, this Limpopo golf course, which has, again, a different lighting. So, of course, the difference with the HDRI is I cannot really tweak anything about this lighting. I can't make it higher or lower because it's fixed. It's determined from the HDRI we're using. Okay, so in the next video we will see that we can have other option to light our scene. Okay, so we have a lighting, but I would like to have more control on this, because here with the HDRI, I cannot really control the intensity and the elevation, the angle of the light and so on. And the sky texture is rather poor. I don't have a proper background and so on. So what I'm going to do is to add a plane to have the background I need inside the scene. Okay, so we're going to unplug here on our environment the background. We're back to the lighting like this, and I would like to add the plane. So to do that, we need to use an add-on. So let's go to Edit, Preferences. This is a free add-on embedded inside Blender, and we're going to Add-on, and then we're going to type Image, Import Image as Planes. So you just need to enable it. Okay, that's it. And now we're about to import our image as a background. Now we're going to use Shift-A, and we're going to import here on Image, our image as plane. Then let's browse to our Blender room in the text folder, and we can see our cityscape. We have a lot of options here, and I just would like to change here the material settings from principal to emit, because this is going to be an emissive material, very simple. Okay, we have other options, we will see them later. Okay, so let's import it as a plane. So now it appeared right here because this is where our 3D cursor was. So let's just move it somewhere there. Let's switch back to our camera, typing 0 on the keyboard, and then we're able to just scale it. So let's scale it so that it fills a frame. So I think our horizon plane is something like that. So I try to match it with our scene. As for the depth, well, if it's a still image, we could put it right in front of the window. But because we're going to make an animation of it when we will do everything with Eevee, let's move it down further like this, so that we have a proper parallax. I'm going back to 0, then scale it again, and try to match everything together. So I'm going to move it something like that, and I think that works. Okay, now this image, if we go to the object settings here on our shader editor, you can see we're using here our cityscape with the principal BSDF using the emission. Okay, so I'm going to delete the principal BSDF, And I'm going to add instead an emission. So let's go to search, emission. We're going to connect the color to the color, and then here to the surface. Now, if I increase the emission here, it's going to appear burned out, and also it's going to light the scene. So let's go back to our world, and we're going to just switch off here the background, going to 0. And we can see our plane is really lighting the scene, but it's not strong enough. So it's doing something, but it's not high enough, it's not strong enough to light everything. If we go even further, it's going to be too much, really. And also the lighting won't be a good quality lighting because this is a LDR, low resolution image, and it's not enough to light everything, even though it seems that it can be. So let's go back to something like 2, and we're going to add further lighting into the scene using a direction light. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to shift right click here to spot our 3D cursor. Then we're going to shift A and add a light and a sunlight. Okay, this sunlight is going to light the scene. The location of the light is of no importance, but now if I move it something like here, so it's inside the scene, we have this yellow dot. Let's switch here to make it more obvious. We have this yellow dot. If I just move it this way, you can see I can orient the light the way I want. Okay, so I can just move now using G, our direction light, and you can see it doesn't have any effect on the lighting, so you can put it wherever you want, something like here, for example, and using the yellow dot here, we can very easily orient the lighting. So I would like to have something like that, for example, or we could very well use here our directional tool to orient it further the way I want. So something like that, for example. Okay, this sunlight, if I click here, we have the option, is not strong enough to light the scene yet. So let's increase the strength. Let's go to 10, for example, and have much more lighting going into the scene. Okay, so please be careful that in your render settings here, you are here on the color management on filmic. That's very important. If you are not, let's go back, for example, to standard. You can see it will look blown out with burnt highlight and the color are just wrong. Okay, so be careful that we use the filmic. And now with the sun, we can even increase it further if we want. Let's go to 20, for example. I think 20 is maybe too much. It depends. And you're just going to balance your lighting this way. So this is our sun. Let's go to 15 maybe. But then if we go to our cityscape, I click here on the object, we have the option. We can maybe increase the emission. And I want it to be more blown out like that, but not too much. So here, I think we have a good balance. I can click here to just hide everything and see the lighting only. Okay, so from there, we already have something working. I think we can use. And we're going to do, I think, a few slight adjustments in the next video. So I think the lighting looks pretty good, but there's something that bothers me. You can see here on the wall and on the ceiling, there is a strong blue cast. And that's because we have our picture here, which is pretty blue. It's even more obvious if you switch to this camera and see the background, where the blue cast is very obvious. Well, it's expected because we have this blue image, but it doesn't fare well with here our directional light, which is rather neutral. So there's a way to control this. I'm going to take our cityscape, and if I put it to 0, we can see it contributes to the lighting. But it's not enough. Our directional directional light is not enough to light the entire scene. I do want to have a little bit of the cast of our cityscape here. So let's put it back to 4. So what I'm going to do is to use a special node, which is the light path node. Let's add it, Shift A, and then I'm going to type light path. All right, so here it is. We have all those very complicated entries, and the one I'm interested in is the transmission ray. So I'm going to duplicate here our emission, plug it here, and we're going to plug it there again. We're going now to use another node, which is our U shift, U saturation value. Now, if I take our value saturation to 0, we can see our image is black and white and our lighting is now neutral. That's what I want to play with. So I have two shaders, this one which is neutral and this one which is the real one. So let's plug it back. I want to mix them. I'm going to mix them using here our light path node. So to do this, let's add our mix shader. Okay, and now I'm going to plug this one on the bottom and this one in the upper part. And the factor here is going to be driven by the transmission ray. And then I'm going to plug all of that to the surface. So what happens? As you can see, we still have the same thing because we have an emission of 4. This is the second shader. Let's put it first, let's put our saturation to 0, and then let's decrease our emission. We can see we lost most of the blue cast. We still have some, but it's much more controlled. Okay, even more so if we go back here and we look at this. So this way we can very easily control here the intensity of the one we see, the emission which is on the bottom. I could even turn it off. Let's go back to maybe 3.5. And this one, which is the intensity and the saturation of the light going inside for this other ray, meaning that this one is still contributing to the lighting, but all the further lighting is handled by this one. So if we put it to 0, as you can see, we have something more contrasty because we have not so much lighting coming from this window. So let's go maybe to 2. Let's take a look here at this camera. And that's overall better. Okay, so now that's being taken care of, I would like to work on this part here. It's still a bit too dark, and that makes sense because if we take a look at the room, there is no lighting. The only lighting coming in is from behind. And we do have a door here, so we can add lighting coming to this door. So we're going to add light coming from the door. So first I'm going to open the door. So let's take it here. And using here our universal tool, or more simply using the R key, I can just open it. So I want to open it the other way. So let's do it this way, for example. Okay, so now if we launch the render, we will see we have a problem. We do have light coming in, a lot of it, but it's direct sunlight coming from here. And it's pitch dark out there. Of course, because there is nothing. So we need to add a room. Add a room to have the lighting gather in and then pass through the door. So let's do this. Let's go back to this view. I'm going to add here our overlay. And then we're going to add a cube. So it's going to appear right here. Let's go to this view. Alt, I'm going to snap orthographic view. Right click and shift, I can put the 3D cursor here. I'm going to make the room collection active and let's add a cube. So let's go to mesh, cube. Shift Z to make it wireframe. And then we're going to add to tap tab, and we're going to select these vertices. Okay, so again, you can use your gizmo if you want to move them this way. And maybe let's go this way to have a room approximately the same size of this one. I'm going to take those vertices. Let's move them over there. All right. And same here. Let's move them this way. Then let's go to this view. I'm going to snap using Alt. And then we're going to move those vertices right here and those here. And now we have our room. If we go back here, Shift Z to make it apparent. And just be careful that you don't overlap. This is the case here. You don't overlap with the other rooms. So Shift Z again to make sure that you can grab all those vertices. I'm going to slide them a little bit. Okay, now let's go back, Shift Z. So the problem is our door is open, but of course, because this is just a cube, it obstructs everything. So we can take care of that using the Boolean feature we have with our room. If we take a look here, I'm using tab and take this room here. So this is the main room. If we go to the modifier tab, we can see it's using a solidify and a Boolean. We're going to mimic that. The solidify is going to add thickness to our wall. So let's use it, solidify. Okay, I'll keep it very simple with 0.01 meter. And now we're going to add the Boolean just to carve inside this opening. So let's use Boolean. And we need to use the Boolean, which is being used here for this door. So our door is precisely this door group, I think. Yes. And we have a control hole. And this is the one we're going to use to cut into the room. So let's go back to our main cube. So this is the one here. And the Boolean we're going to use here in the object our control hole of the door group. So let's use here the eyedropper and use this one. And that's it. We have carved a hole inside. So the problem now, if we are going to add lighting again to go back to our shading mode, there will be no light coming in because this is a closed cube after all. So we need to manage the opening here as if it were a room with another window this way. So let's do this. I'm going to take our cube, hit tab, hit 3 on the keyboard to switch to polygon mode. You can also click here. I'm going to take this polygon and then I'm going to use the inset. Inset is I, or you could use here this gizmo. I'm going to inset the face this way. And once done, you can click here and go further if you want. So let's do something like that. Big opening. Now I'm going to delete the faces. And now we have an opening. Let's go back here. So the light is going to gather. So let's go inside our room. And I'm going maybe to create another camera. So let's create something like that. And we're going to make the cams active. And I'm going to add a new camera. So let's go here, camera. So my camera is now added. I'm going to make the camera active, clicking here, and then Control Alt 0 on the numpad to make the framing. I'm going back here and adjust the focal length to something like 28 millimeter. All right, now if we go to our shading mode, we can see we have our door and light coming in. Okay, so that's good, but maybe we could add some more light into the room. Okay, now we have light coming from the room, but I would like to control more the intensity. So if we look at the scene, the light actually comes from the directional light, the sun, which is going to bounce against the wall and then light the other room. If I want to make it more like there is more light coming from this end, what I could do is just add another light. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going back to the de-shading mode, then Shift Z to see through, to have the wireframe mode. Now I'm going to make sure that we are in the cams collection, Shift A, and I'm going to add our light, which is going to be an array light. Okay, let's orient it on the y-axis. If you always ask about the axis, just take a look at the gizmo here. So we can see it's the y-axis if we wanted to rotate it this way. So R, then Y, it goes this way, then 90 degrees. So I type 90. I'm going to put it this way, and then let's make it so it's really in front of the door. Here, on the option of the light, I can change the shape to rectangle. This way, I can easily make it the size roughly of our door. Okay, so now we have this light coming from there. So if I go back to our rendering mode, we can see our light coming in. So let's hit 0 to see the light here. And now I can just increase the intensity if I want. So if I make it like 35, we'll have more light coming in this way. If we take a look at this other camera, we'll even see here, you see the shadow from the door here, and very easily I can control the intensity. So here it's like there is a lot of light coming from there. We can see it very clearly because of the shadow. It gives another depth to the scene. Okay, so 30, 60 is maybe too much. Let's go back to 30. Okay, we can use the same trick to have more light coming from the exterior, because here the only light coming from the exterior is from our panel here, our cityscape, and the sunlight. We want to flood more light inside the scene. What we can do is just add it as a light. So let's make it in front of the window here. So right click and shift. I'm going to put our 3D cursor here. Shift A. Let's add another air light. Again, we're going to rotate it this time on the X axis. So R, then X, then 90 degrees. Okay, perfect. Let's go this way. Let's put it right in front like that. And change to rectangle. I'm going to increase the size, something like that. Okay, so now let's go to our main camera here. I'm going to click to make it the active camera, then 0 to frame, and launch the render. We can see you have already more light coming in, thanks to this light. If I increase the intensity, it's going to be more obvious. But it looks dim through the window. This is because we have some refraction and reflection going on. And this arrow light, I just wanted to use to light the scene, nothing else. I don't want to be reflected or anything else. I don't want to see it through glasses. So what we can do is very easily go here to the option of the object, and then we will see here shading and visibility. In the ray visibility, we can see here we have the diffuse glossy. So let's untick the glossy and the transmission. And as we can see, now it's really invisible, but it's still lighting the scene thanks to the diffuse. So now it's very easy to control the intensity, the bounce of the light. See without and with. And you can increase it a lot if you want. So 150, you can see, it's going to flood the room with light. And this is a way to add more light and to control the contrast. So let's see the back of the room, and the difference is very obvious. And here I think 150, it may be too much. So maybe 80, it's really a matter of taste. Yeah, 80 is interesting. Let's untick. I can see it's much darker. Okay, something like that. And don't forget that you can adjust the contrast. If you go to the render settings and here, play with the color management and the look. We're in Filmic here. We want to stay on Filmic, but what we can do is play with the different contrast. If I go to very high contrast, you can see the look of the scene is very different. So let's go back maybe to medium high contrast or medium contrast, or we could go the other way, very low contrast. Looks almost washed out. So let's go maybe to medium contrast or medium high contrast. I like this one. Okay, let's see the other viewpoint. This is nice. And this one? Yeah, perfect. We get the sense that the exterior is very bright. Okay, so perfect. Now, what we're going to do is going to keep attention to mind the color of the wall and change our ground, our floor, because of course the light is going to bounce against the wall, so the color of the wall is going to influence a lot the look of the scene. And the same here for the floor. For this, I'm going to use the website Ambient CJ, which has some great materials. They're all free. You can choose whatever you want and use it freely. So let's go to the materials, and I'm going to search for floor wood or wood floor. And we have all those great examples. So I chose this one, but you could try whichever one you want using the same setup as I'm going to show you. So here I'm going to take this one, and I downloaded the 4K PNG. You could very well use 8K if you want to have the best quality, or if you plan to do big render, but usually 4K is more than enough. Unless you want to have close-up of the wood, a shot very near the ground, you can very much get by with just the 4K. And PNG, because this is the best quality, especially for normals and the roughness. So I downloaded it, and now we're going to use it. So here I'm going to use my principal BSDF, and in order for this to work, don't forget you need to use Node Wrangler in the add-on. So I went to the add-on and Node Wrangler, which is on. This is a mandatory add-on which should be turned on by default every time you use Blender. And now if I take my principal BSDF and use the hotkey Control, Shift and T, I'm going to open this window. Then we go to the text folder where we find the wood floor. And here I'm going to load the color, a normal GL, roughness, ambient occlusion. Do not take the preview here. I'm going to click here on Principal Texture Setup, and everything is set up for us. And as we can see, we have our texture on the ground. So it looks wrong because the size is wrong. And we have in this setup everything well ordered, and we have here our mapping. What we need to change here is the mapping of the scale. So you just take those three. If I just hover and then go this way, I can change it all together. And let's go to 8, for example. And now we can see the planks. So the size of those planks are very important. If you take something too big, it just looks weird. You don't really have planks like that. Also, if you go too much the other way, those planks are a bit tiny. That could work, but I think the right amount should be somewhere between 8 and 12. So maybe let's try 8 here. And I think that works. And that's it. We could just keep it like that. Let's take a look over elsewhere. And it looks pretty good. You have to remember also we have here the denoiser, which is blurring the texture. Actually, we have some details. that are being blurred. And as the render goes on, if I go here and turn on the overlay, we can see we have a rendering. If I go there, okay, and at some point it's going to stop, but in the final rendering we have more details on that. So if I want to tweak more the material, I'm going to zoom in and maybe look this way. And also, just for this, I'm going to turn off the overlay, take here our carpet. So I just clicked, then period on the numpad key. I'm going to find here our carpet with zigzag pattern. I'm just going to unload so that we can see the whole floor. And if we want to tweak it to make it more reflective, we just have to play a little with that. So what we could do, if you want to make it more reflective, is already increase the specular to 1. Okay, and then we're going to play with the roughness. Actually, if I just unplug the roughness and set it to something like 0, you can see the effect. The roughness is going to be the blurriness of your reflection. Okay, making it rough if you just increase that. So we just, here, you can see we have some kind of very smooth floorboard, and if we go all the way up, it's going to look very rough, very old and worn. And when we plug here the roughness, this texture, it's rather worn. If we wanted to make it smoother, what we're going to do is add Shift A, a gamma. Gamma, I'm going to plug it here. If I increase the gamma, as you can see, it's going to be more shiny. You will see it even more if you have a grazing angle like that. This is a Fresnel effect. And you can see it looks very shiny, whereas if you look just this way, it's less reflective. Okay, so let's put it this way. And I think I like it like that because it's very smooth. Still, we can see here the effect of the bump or the dents here in the reflection. And overall, I think it looks quite nice. So let's go see the camera. Okay, let's see maybe another angle. I'm going to twirl down and go to this camera. And maybe let's take a look at this one. You can see the reflection here on the floor. And I think I like that. There's something missing. We don't have any curtain, and that doesn't look very good. In every studio apartment, you should have some kind of stores, of curtains, something to block the light. Here it's just blinding. So we're going to add some curtains, and we're going to use again Blender Kit to find those. So I'm going to type here curtains, and we have a whole lot of choice. So I'm going here to switch and use the free first. Again, if you take subscription, you will have much more choices. Here, I'm just limiting myself to the free assets, which are already pretty good. And we have all those which are interesting. Okay, so I'm going to keep it very simple and use this one. So I'm going to take it, and if I drag, I can put it somewhere here. And as you can see, it's upside down. So let's switch to the shading view. I'm going to also make our overlay appear, and I'm going to resize the window. Okay, so we have our object. I'm going to take it, and it's been put inside the object. Using the period key, I can find it, curtain grain. I'm going to take here the empty object, and now I can rotate it. So you can use here the rotation tool, like that, or very simply use the R and then X and 90 degrees. So I'm going to type 90 degrees. And now I can just slide it down, or use here G and then Z. And as we can see, they are too small for the scene. Okay, so we're just going to resize them. So let's take care first of here our bar. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then this is the cylinder. I'm going to go to edit mode and then Shift Z to go to the wireframe. Let's select the box. I'm going to make sure that I select all the polygon here. And now I'm going to put it in orthographic view. And if I use G, I can move it this way. And then let's use X to make sure that it's extend here. And this one also. X, and here we are. Perfect. Now we have to take care of the curtain. So let's take those two. And what we can do is use here Shift right click. I'm going to click here to set our 3D cursor. Okay, so it was a good thing that I checked because it put it on the wall here. I don't want that. I want to put it right here on the bar. So right click, Shift again. All right, it's in the right angle. So now what I can do is use here the transform pivot point and set it to 3D cursor. Now if I'm going to use here the scale, I'm going to resize it from this origin point. So let's go on this view and I'm going to resize and make it sure it touches almost the floor. And that's it. Okay, now I'm going to take one of the curtain. Let's take this one and slide it this way. And same thing for the other. Slide it this way. Okay, now it looks much better, much more realistic. What we can do is take care, Shift Z, of those two hangers here. Okay, so those are the cylinder. If we take a look, we have a modifier, and we can see there is a mirror and solidify. If I take the mirror, you can see the actual object is this one. So let's go to edit mode. I'm going to select all the polygons, and then we can move it, for example, this way, somewhere here. Okay, and that's too far for this one. So we're just going to change to edit to go to object mode. Okay, see object mode and edit. In object mode, I'm going to move it again and make sure it's in the right spot now. Okay, I think we're going to move it a bit more like that. Switch to edit and then move this one further down. Here we are. Okay, perfect. So now we have our curtain made. But if I go on this view and launch the render again, we can see that it doesn't look very good. Our curtains are very, very opaque. They don't let any light through. And we have to take care of that. Okay, so we have our curtains, but they don't really let the light through. They are very dark, and I would like to have something more lit, more transparent. So it's pretty easy to fix. We're going to enlarge here and take the shader of our curtain. And we can take a look, and it looks like this. Okay, so first, because we're still using cycles, I'm going to switch here and plug the normal here. We'll have the right behavior. But still, it's not the problem here. I'm going to also hide the overlay. The problem is we need to use the subsurface. Subsurface is going to let the light through it. It's going to travel inside and look much better. But it's not going to work if I just increase here. You can see it looks weird. So we need to do something. The curtain need actually to have some kind of thickness. And as we can see here, we do not have any thickness. If I go there, you can see here, our hoops are just one single polygon. I mean, it has no thickness. And same thing here for the whole thing. So I'm going to take the curtain and add on the modifier a solidify. Solidify is going to add some thickness. As you can see, we have now this. Okay, I'm going to let it just like that. Same thing with the other, solidify. And now if I go back 0 to our camera and launch the render again, we will see the subsurface is working much better. But still it looks very weird because we have here this intensity, 0.5, so it's half this shader, which is pretty dark, and the subsurface, if I go through, it will be entirely a subsurface shader. I want to have a mix. But then the red color here comes from our subsurface radius. If you click here, we can see we have some value hidden. And those values are meant for skin, a skin material for a creature, for example. It doesn't look very good on a curtain. So we need to change it. And this value is depending on the thickness we have here. So it's more on guess and work basis. And if I just change here from 0.1, we can see now it's transparent. We do have some light coming through. If I increase this value, let's go for example to 0.4, it will be even lighter. So maybe that's too much. I'm going to change the value back to 0.1. Then we need to think about the color of the curtain itself. So here we have the base color. I'm going to Control Shift click to solo the shader. And it's a bit dark, I think. So I'm going to increase a little bit with the RGB, something lighter. And you can see we have a subsurface color coming through. So what I'm going to do is close this one. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate. Let's connect it to the yellow dot here. And this second texture is going to be much lighter. Let's take a look. Okay. And I'm going to connect this one to subsurface color. Now if I connect the whole thing, we have our curtain, which lets through the light and has very nice shading. If I go closer to it and we'll wait a little bit, we can see we have the texture and it looks very nice. We already have the illusion of depth. Okay, so let's go back here. We have one last step to take care of. Our curtain are passing the light, as we can see, but we don't see it on the shadow here. It's still very opaque. So to fix this, I'm going to add another setup. I'm going to use again our light path. We used it already with our landscape on the background. So here we're going to use the light path and we're going to use the shadow ray. Now I'm going to add a transparent. So transparent, don't mistake with the translucent. Transparent shader. I'm going to add it here. And then we're going to use a mix shader. And the mix shader here, we're going to put the transparent on the bottom and the main shader principle here on the top. And then we're going to connect here our shadow ray. So that means now if everything is connected, so Control Shift click, as you can see, now we have gotten back our light. It as is the curtain doesn't exist and all the light pass through. So that's a bit too much. I don't want that. I'm just going to here to fix the transparent BSDF, click on the color, and this is the opacity of your shadow. So if I go back to 0, our curtain is fully opaque. And I just want to have something of a mix. So let's increase here. And maybe we're going to take a look here at the shadow. You can see we have the light passing through. As I think something like that is nice. Also, I'm going back to the sun and we're going to increase the angle so we have smoother shadow. Okay, I think that looks better. We have the light coming through and it's more interesting also on here our sofa. Now if I go back here, we have a curtain passing through the light and the shadow here. Okay, I would like to do a small fix in the meantime. You can see here on our window, we have the black seal here, which is too dark. So I'm going to take here our material, and we have the different slot. And if I go back here, we have the plastic. So I'm going to take the second slot to see the plastic. I'm going now to use the home key to focus on all that. We don't need the principal shader. And here the culprit is the diffuse BSDF, which is much too dark. So it's 0. Doesn't make sense. I'm going to increase the intensity to something like a gray. So we still have a contrast with the frame of the window, but it's not as strong as before. Okay, let's go back to 0 and maybe increase a bit the framing. Let's wait to see how it looks. And I think that's pretty good. It looks like some curtains. It's going to filter the light. And overall, it looks much nicer, I think. One last thing I'm going to do. I don't like this black handle on the curtain here. So I'm going to click here, make sure our cylinder is chosen. Perfect. And here we have our matte paint black. And I would like to change it, but as you can see, we don't have any node because it's not using any node. So I can just click here to use nodes or go to the material tab, and you can see here our material. If I go to settings, so on, we have a different parameters. Actually, I'm going to change just the what we want. I would like to use a principal shader, so I'm going to use here the use node. Because here it's just a simple diffuse color. It's not very interesting. So I'm going to use node. Now it's using in principle BSDF. And I would like for this one, so let's zoom in a little bit to see it better. It's right here. I'm going to make it metallic. And I would like to use something like a golden hue. So let's go to change our color. I'm going to go over there and try to find, and you can see here the effect. So maybe more orange. Okay, and I'm going to try to tweak the color to find the right amount, to have some kind of copper. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Let's go back to 0 again to add the framing of our camera. It's time now to add a little bit of decoration. So first, I would like to change a little bit my setup on my viewport here. I'm going to click right there between the two columns here. You can see we have some kind of cross. So I'm going to click there and drag to the left. It's going to open a new window. And actually, the left window will be the one with the camera. So I can just move it like that. And also, I'm going to take my camera. So this is the camera. Let's go here to the option of the camera. And we can see we have here the viewport display passepartout. I'm going to increase to the maximum so we have the right framing. And on this one, holding middle click, I'm going to slide there to make appear this, and I'm going to just hide my overlays. You can see the shortcut is Shift-Alt-Z. Shift-Alt-Z is faster. Okay, and this one here is perfect to place element. Right, so I would like to add a few stuff. So first, I forgot to add one important element, which is this table. I'm going to take it, hit period on the numpad, and we can see we have a coffee table. Perfect. I'm going to place it. So let's go to the top view. I'm using G. I'm going to place it over there. All right. And then I'm going to rotate so that we have the right angle. So yes, you can see here we have the rotation angle from the 3D cursor. That's because in the last video I changed this here. So let's change it again and change to median point, which is a default option. Okay, now if I'm going to move it 90 degrees, you can see it works. So let's move it 90 degrees. Okay, 190 degrees. Let's validate. No, it makes more sense to have it this way. Okay, so this is 90 degrees again. So every time I just type 90 and hit enter to have the selection. Okay, and this is where my table is going to be. And I think I'm going to move a little bit my chair. So here again, period on the numpad. I'm going to take the empty so that I can move the whole thing more easily. Okay, I'm going to rotate it like that. I think it's a better angle, like this. Okay, let's not hide our screen. And finally, I guess I'll go to my camera. So this is the camera here. I would like to have a lower point of view. So I'm going to look at the properties here, and we're going to move on the y-axis. Okay, and then on the z-axis, which is up. And I think this is a better angle. And the rotation, let's put it to 90 degrees. So that we have here our parallax, our lines are straight. So then I need to move a little bit again our z-axis. All right, so now we can add decoration in the room. So we're going to add all of our decoration from Blender Kit. So it's still here. I'm going to click there to have the filter. I would like to have the free first asset. All right. And then I'm going to hit N to have other option on the Blender Kit. And here you can see we have find and upload asset. I'm going to open this. And I would like to change one thing. I would like to be the import method to link. So what does it mean? Append is going to add the files to the Blender file. And then the Blender file is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can get something like several hundred megabytes of file size. Link is going to embed the object as a Blender file, meaning that it's going to create a folder with Blender files and it's going just to link to those elements. Thus, your main file is going to keep at a lower size. So I'm going to do that because we have already a big file. Okay, now that's done. I'm going to hit N to hide this panel. And I guess we can also increase the size of our window, and I'm going now to take element. So let's navigate like that. I'm going to add decoration element. So what we can do is just add decoration, and we have all those elements. And well, you just browse to find what you would like to use. So for example, we have a decorative vase that could be very interesting at some place. Let's move this way. And for example, we have a table decoration. That could be interesting to have it right there. So I'm going here to take my table decoration and put it there. It's downloading, and here it is. Now I can just move it. I'm going to use my gizmo to place it the way I want. And as you can see here, I'm checking on this camera how everything look. All right, so we can add other stuff. Maybe I could add on the wall here some decoration. And I found just before that, yeah, we have the Buddha wall decoration. So let's take it, and I'm going to put it there. All right, so it's a bit smaller. I'm going to take it. And we can see we are inside the object collection. I'm going to hit the period key, and this is my Buddha. As you can see, we have this icon, meaning that it's a linked collection. Okay, Now I can just increase the size with S and maybe place it here. And what we can do is just change the point of view here to see what's going on. So here, looks interesting. This way also. And I'm going to change all my element like that. So here I guess we can add other element like this decorative vase. Maybe we can put it somewhere there, or look at other element. So this one is interesting, for example. Maybe we could put that on this table here. So I'm going to take the table, period, to just zoom on it, and I'm going to place it here. All right, it's a bit big, so let's decrease the size. And I think that's better. Let's take a look at this view. And obviously at the end we will move stuff to make them more organized. And so on and so on. So we can add also decoration on the wall. Don't forget to add picture, to add object and so on. For example, here we can add painting. And we have several painting. This is nice. But maybe we're going to add something else. Or we could add picture. Be creative about the keyword you're going to use. And to see what you can add, and we have a lot of choice. So that's very interesting to just browse and try to find whatever you want. So for the next part, I'm going to pause the video, then accelerate it, because you don't want to see me place everything. That's too interesting, but let's just skip this part. To fill out the bookcase, it's a bit more difficult, so I'm going to show you a few tricks. I'm going to look here, books, and we have several examples, and I can use this one, for example. So I'm going to take it, and let's put it right here, for example. And it's going to download, and it's a bit too big, so I'm going to take that here and just decrease the size. Let's move it this way. And then we can add other books like that. So maybe let's add this other one. Let's put it here. And again, it's a bit too big, so I'm going to change the size. And we could add other pile of book like that. We have here a smaller one. So let's add it right here. And let's move it this way. And we could continue on filling everything. And sometimes we could have, yeah, this one is interesting. Maybe we could put it here, for example. Let's add it. Perfect. And then going to rotate on the Z axis, so R, Z. And let's decrease a bit the size, like that. And we could continue like this, no, those are two different. This one is interesting too. And we're going to fill everything like that. Let's decrease the size of this one, so it fits inside. And we can add other elements, like here I added a vase. And other decoration objects. So let's try decoration again to add other stuff which could just belong here. For example, here decorative vase could be interesting right here. All right, and this is an example I wanted to show you. So we have this object which is on the wall. I don't want that. So let's right click and shift there, so we could place our 3D cursor. And while you have this object selected, Shift S, selection to cursor. It's going to put it here. Then let's go here to the coordinate, and I'm just going to hit backspace, so that's going to reset all coordinate. And here we're just going to increase the size of this thing. I think it's more interesting, and using here directly the coordinate, we can change the angle like that. All right, and we can continue adding decoration. We're going to add other camera to have a various viewpoint. So in this scene, I'm going to add a first camera right in front of the window. So let's go there, for example. I'm going to make sure that we have our active connection here, cams, and then we're going to add the new camera. So Shift A, camera. This camera will be the active camera because we have here this rounded square, and we can see here in the scene we have the camera. Okay, so it's selected. I'm going to select the camera, and now to set the viewpoint, Control-Alt-0. Let's change the focal length to something very short, like 28 millimeter. I would like to have a viewpoint which is very straight. So let's change the rotation in the object properties to 90 degrees. I'm going to change in here in our element the passepartout to the maximum. And then I'm going to change this view. I just want to look at this one. I would like now to rotate my camera. So I'm going to select it, and we're going to change rotation here to minus 180 degrees, so that we're just in front of the camera. And what I can do is just move it from here. All right, I would like a viewpoint which is closer to all our elements. Here we have our height, so 1 meter. Maybe we're going to have something lower than that. I'm going to also change, and I think we need to change the focal length after all. So maybe let's try 24 millimeter. Okay, I think that's better. Let's get closer, and actually we're going to move up the camera. So let's move it up, something like that. And I'm going to the camera, I'm going to use the shift here to just lower it. So this is a tilt shift transformation we're doing, meaning that we're going to keep our line straight here, and it's as if we were moving here our rotation, but we don't skew the perspective here. So it's a very handy trick. Be careful not to go too far this way, because it's going to create some kind of deformation, as you can see here on the legs of the chair. So something like that is quite nice, I think. And maybe we can just increase again like this, and let's lower it again. So we have just this corner right here. And maybe we can move the whole sofa like that. Okay, we just need to be careful to select the whole thing. So this is sofa, the empty, which is going to take everything, and I think that's better. And at last, we're going to move again the camera. Let's take it. And something like this. Perfect. Now we can take a look at the viewpoint. If we go here, I'm using my mouse middle click to slide right and left. And if I just activate the render, we can see the result. And you can see it's pretty nice. Let's take our chair again, period, to focus here on our object. And let's move it more like that. Okay, that's interesting. Let's wait a little bit to have the whole frame, and we can see we already have an interior which looks pretty good. Okay, from there we could create some other viewpoint. For example, I would like to have more details on certain object. So let's move here, and we're going to the bottom here of our cam collection, and we're going to create another camera here. So let's Shift A to create a new camera. And this camera is going to be the active camera by clicking here. I'm going to stop the rendering, and let's activate here the viewpoint, Control-Alt-0. So now we have this viewpoint, and you can see the result here. I'm going to change again the passepartout to the maximum. And what we could do here is use our function we have just added to the Q command to lock camera to view. Okay, what you could do is also hit N, go to view, and use camera to view. So now if I'm going just to move, I'm moving the whole camera. And here we have a focal length of 50 millimeter. And I think that's exactly what I want to create this viewpoint. We can even do it while we have our render. So let's activate the render. And this is the viewpoint we have. And of course, you can just move your object. So here I'm going to take the whole object. Let's go to the coordinate, and maybe we're going to move like this to have a more interesting viewpoint. Okay, that's nice. And we could create other viewpoint like that. For this one, we could even try to have a longer focal length here. Let's try, for example, 80 millimeter, which is going to be very close. And then we're going to move our camera. And here, let's just do it from this viewpoint. So here I'm just zooming down, and we still have this viewpoint here on our object. Okay, that's cool. And we could create other viewpoint again. So here I'm going to change. I would like a viewpoint maybe from here to better see the bookcase and all this part. Okay, so let's add a new camera. Let's make it the active camera, then Control-Alt-0 to create the viewpoint. Let's stop the rendering also here. And I'm going here to increase the passepartout to the maximum. And let's change the focal length to something very short, like 28 millimeter. And already, I think the framing is pretty nice. So are we going to move that? Maybe this way. And what we could do is use the same trick we did earlier. Put the rotation to 90 degrees. And then on the camera, use here the shift to lower the perspective. And maybe we're going to lower the focal length to 24 millimeter. And that's interesting. And from here, what we could do is take our orientation global to local, meaning that if we just use this one, this axis, we can make it lower and have this interesting viewpoint. And I think we're going back to 28mm, which was more interesting. Let's take a look here with the rendering. So I click on the viewport shading. Okay, and I like the fact that we have the light coming from here. And we could create other viewpoints like that. So I'm not going to create all of them. I'll create a few other, and we will catch on the next video. Our scene is almost finished. I would like to add some more details. One very important is to add some depth of field for the detail camera. So if we take a look here at the detail coffee table, looks very nice, but from this focal length, we should have the focus on the vase here. So it's very easy to do. You just take your camera and you go to the option of the camera, and you can see here we have depth of field. So I'm going to activate it, and everything gets blurry because the distance of the depth of field is at 10 meters, which is a long way from here. So we can see here on our other view, our camera. I'm going here in the viewport display to activate here the limits, and the limit is where the focal length, the focal point is. So now if I'm going to change the distance here, it's going to bring it closer to us, and what I would do is to put it right here on the glass. So let's move it here, and now we can see we have the focus here on the glass. What we can do now is play with the f-stop. The higher the f-stop, the shorter our depth of field. So we see here we have the focus on the glass, and the background is slightly blurred. On the other hand, if I want to put it to 1 f-stop, it's going to be very shadow and very tightly focused here on the glass. You can see even the book here is a bit out of depth. So let's choose something in between, maybe 4, for example. And here with this other option here, you can change the look of your depth of field, of your blur. I don't think I'll keep it like that for now, because it's already look good. Let's see the detail vase now. I'm going to click here, and same thing here. We have our infinite depth of field. So I would like to concentrate here, for example, on the vase here. What I could do, let's move over there. So this is this camera, and I'm going to activate the depth of field. But here, instead of choosing a distance here, we're going to use the focus object. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper and then click here on our object decoration. And now we have the focus point right here. If I show the limits, we can see it's right on this spot. And here maybe we could change the f-stop again, try a very shallow depth of field. You can see it changed the mood of the shot because you already see this point here. You don't really concentrate on that. And we could try to use another one. For example, here I could use our object still decoration here. So now again it changed everything because we don't really mind about the vase here, and instead we're looking here at this object. For the other camera, you could use your depth of field, but as they are very short focal length camera, you're not really supposed to do that. I mean, we have an infinite depth of field here, and it's fine. What you could do is activate it anyway. Maybe use a depth of field here. So this is this camera. Let's use the limit, and we're going to shorten the distance to be in the middle of the room. So it's activated. And as you can see, if we take a look here at our thing, if I put it with a very shadowed depth of field, it works, and it does give us a very strange feeling, like it's small scale object of everything. Instead, we're going to change the f-stop to 8. So the background and the foreground are going to be very slightly blurred. We could even try maybe 4 again. And it's going to give us a bit more of realism, because no camera has a perfect depth of field. So it will be just slightly blurred, but hardly noticeable. Okay, you have to mind that activating the depth of field is going to increase the render time. So whether you use it or not also depends on how much time you can allow the computer to calculate everything. Okay, so we are almost finished. I like the look of everything, but I think we can make it even better. There's something that just bothers me, is the wall. The wall is just a plain material, as you can see here, with the diffuse, with the plain color. And that's not really realistic. It's difficult because walls are very white, very uniform, but they do have a bit of details. So what we're going to do is to add some material from the Blender kit. So let's choose another view where we can see better our wall. For example, our detail bookcase here, where we can see here our wall right there. Okay, so now I'm going to look here and choose fine material, and then we're going to look for a plaster material. Okay, so here I'm looking for a plaster material, and there are several of them, and one I really liked was this one, I think. So right click to see, yes, plastered white interior with procedural scratches. That's perfect. I'm going to use this one, so let's grab it and let's put it here on the wall. So it's going to apply it, and let's hide. We can see it has a very profound effect on everything. There is a problem with the scale. We can see it here, it's very coarse. So I'm going to click here to have our material. So it's all of that. But what I'm looking for is here the mapping. And obviously the mapping is wrong. So I'm going to use the scale here to have it much lower. Let's go maybe to 7. Also, I'm going to change something here in the render settings. I'm going to disable the denoiser, because the denoiser is preventing us from seeing the details. Also, I'm going to use here on our view, even more so, I'm going to here to create another viewpoint. Let's create something like that. And let's move to be close from the wall. And in the view, we're going to use a trick. We're going to use view region and render region, so that we can see only this part. And let's wait to have more details. Okay, and as you can see, I think the scale is good, but now the problem is it's too coarse. So what we can do is go here on our element and find the bump. Here it is, and we have a bump. We have 3 bumps on top of each other, and obviously it's much too strong. So let's divide this result by 2, for example, or even 3. So let's go to 0.2, and this one will be 0.1, and this one 0.05. Let's wait for it to calculate. And as you can see, we have less detail. It's not that coarse. I think that's better. Now, let's deactivate here on our view region. Let's clear render region. You can see we have a shortcut. And I'm going back to our detail bookcase. So I'm going to hit 0 to have the view. The second thing I'm going to do is to have a more lighter color for all this. You see, it's very dark now compared to the door and the ceiling and so on. So I'm going here on the color ramp. Actually, I do like that it's like that. I'm going to just use a gamma. So the gamma if I use a lower value, it's going to make it brighter. We'll have also a lower contrast. Okay, so I think that's better. Let's see other view, like this one. Also this one. And I think I'm going to enable back our denoise to better see the lighting. Okay, and everything is a bit darker now because I have decreased the albedo. So let's go find our exterior fill. I'm going to click here on the icon to have the option, and I'm going to increase the power of this light so we have more light coming in. Okay, that's better. And maybe I'm going to take again our gamma and lower it a bit so we have more contrast between the door and the ceiling and so on. All right, so let's see some more details. And as you can see, because of the denoiser, we have the details that disappear. But after some time, they come back. And you can see here the effect of the plaster. I don't know if with the compression of the video you can see it, but on my end I can see it, and we can see some details here we don't see other, because we are closer from a window and from a grazing angle. So it looks better this way, I think. And it's going to be overall more realistic. So let's see the front window, this view. And let's wait a little bit to have more samples to see if we have the details coming back. And we do have details that we didn't see earlier. So I think now the scene is finished. We just have to prep the render, and in the next chapter use the same lighting and everything to use it with Eevee, so we have a real-time rendering of all that. Now let's talk a little bit about render settings. Actually, with the default render setting with cycles, we have a pretty good output, but we can make it better. And let me show you something. If we go to the detail vase, and I'm going here to change the focus object. Well, let's deactivate the default field. We can see here we have our object, and it looks a bit dark. It looks strange. That's because we don't have a correct light path. So let me explain. If we go here to the render settings, we will see here we have light path. And those numbers here indicate how many bounds the light is allowed to do. So in the diffuse, so against the wall, is going to bounce 4 times. It's more than enough to have a good global illumination. Glossy is for the reflective material, like this one. Transmission is for the glass material. And then we have the transparent. Here the problem is with those objects. If I just click on it, and we'll try to see here if we can decoration vase with everything. And yes, because it's a linked object, we don't have access to the material. So it doesn't matter. Here it's using a cutout, meaning it's using the opacity. So we just need here to increase the transparent settings. If I increase it, you will see that it's going to look much better. We won't have the dark thing again. Also, we can increase here the transmission. Overall, if you want to have the best quality, really the best quality for final render, and you don't really care about how much time it's going to take, you can use here some preset. We have one very fast, very good, which is the full global illumination. If you take this one, everything goes to 32, but the rendering is going to take its time. If we see here the overlay, we can see our samples are adding, and it's slower than if we choose, for example, limited global illumination. This one is very fast, much faster as you can see, but it looks darker because we have limited the diffuse or the bounce to only 1, glossy and so on, and transparent to 8. So you can tweak those parameters. For example, let's go back to 4. 4 is mostly enough to illuminate everything. Glossy, because on this one, I would say let's go to 8. For the transmission, if we go to the bottom here and take a look here at the detail of the coffee table, if we have a transmission which is too low, it's going to get dark, as you can see. And if I increase the number, we'll have a better result here. And the same for all the glass you could have in the scene. So let's go to 16, and I would say that transparent need at least 16 if we go back to our detail vase here. Or you can just bump up everything to the max if you want. So maybe let's do 12, and the diffuse, let's go to 6. Then, now it's been taken care of. What we could try to accelerate the render settings. So let's go here to see our scene. So the sampling here, this is on the viewport. For your final render, you're going to use something else. We have the render here, max samples, and noise threshold. Actually, when you change your viewpoint, let's go to the front window, you will see here the sample accelerating. And here our option, here the max sample is the maximum is going to get. So here it's just 24 because it's on the viewport. But you're going to lose details. Here we're going to go to a higher max sample. And here our noise threshold is going to indicate how fast it's going to get to there. Meaning that if you have blank space like the wall or the floor, it's going to calculate faster than an object with details such as the vase or the complicated texture for the curtain and so on. So here our noise threshold is just going to indicate the quality, the compromise between the quality of the render and how fast it's going to be. So here, for example, if I change my noise threshold to 0.1, you can see it's going to get very fast to the final result. You can see the sample over than 100 are going very, very fast. On the other hand, if we go to 0.1, it's going to add the sample, and here it's not really going faster because it's still adding sample almost everywhere. If I just deactivate here the noise threshold, it's going to take the same time for all the part of the image. It's not going to simplify. The wall will get as many samples as the glass or the curtain. And we're going to lose time. So that's why the noise threshold is important. What we could do for the final rendering, if you really want to have the best quality, is lower it to 0.05. This is a good compromise. And the max sample here, 4096 is pretty good. At the end, when you launch the final render, you will maybe use the time limit to limit the render itself. For example, to prevent it to go to something like 1 hour, you can just limit it to a few minutes if you want. That's especially important if you're doing animation. And last but not least, we have the denoiser. So you should use the denoiser. And here, for the viewport, we're using optics because I'm using an NVIDIA card, and the optics is faster for the preview. For the final render, you should use the open image denoise. And here we have the albedo and normal, which is the best quality. Just remember that the denoise is not a miracle cure. It's going to work only if you have a good render to start with. So the idea to lower the max sample, noise threshold, and make the denoiser do all the work is a bad idea. Actually, you do a good render and you make it perfect thanks to the denoise. If you put high enough sample here and low enough noise threshold, you will have a very long render time, but at the end, clean without even using the denoise. But you have to be patient. One last thing, if you have a computer that is a bit slow, render can take a very long time. If we go, for example, from the device from GPU to CPU, you will see that it's going to take its time. So it's calculating everything again, and look at the speed of the sample here. Okay, this is very slow. Okay, it's up to 10 or 20 times slower than with the GPU. But maybe you don't have any choice for that. So one solution to make everything faster is to use, for example, on the back here, the fast GI approximation. If you do that, your GI will be much faster because it's simplified. What we're going to do here is change the viewport bounds. So it's how many bounds of light? Just one. You can see, well, it's too low. So let's go back to maybe 3, maybe 2 in the viewport, and 3 for the final render. And here our AO factor is going to simplify the calculation of the light for the whole scene. So let's go back anyway to the GPU, because this is really too slow with just the CPU. Okay, that's faster. And now here with the AO factor, you're going to indicate what is the distance for the AO. The AO is going to add dark corner everywhere. You can see the effect is very strong here on the wall, for example. So let's decrease the AO distance to something lower, something like that, and maybe decrease the AO factor. And the viewport bounds on the viewport, let's go back to 3, because that explains why we don't have much light coming back here. Overall, you can see it's faster, but the result of the render will be less accurate and somewhat darker, but that can be interesting. In my case, I'm not going to use it. So let's untick here how fast GI approximation. As you can see, it's almost as fast and more accurate. And that's it. Then if you want to make a render, you just have to render here, image, and it's going to use the settings from this render. So I'm going to do it. Let's render an image, and I will see you when it's done. The render is finished. As you can see, it took its sweet time because it took 3 minutes and 42 seconds. That's because I put some quite high samples. And we can see some detail we didn't see earlier on the wall, for example, the plaster. And I think it's still a bit too big, maybe. The scale is not small enough. And also, I think we could lighten everything up again, adding some light maybe from the sun. I think we can make it brighter here, and also from our field light from the exterior. For everything else, it looks pretty good. I do like the carpet, and here our floorboard and so on. If you want to save an image like that, you just go to Image and you're going to save it. Don't forget to do it, because if you don't, this image will be lost once you close Blender. Okay, so that's it for the cycle part. In the next chapter, we're going to see how to tweak everything for Eevee, and also how to use the compositor to brighten everything and to add some effect. The lighting is done, all the texture are here, and our render settings are good, but it's still not real time. We're using cycles, which is not real time. The rendering is really accurate. We have proper light bouncing and so on, but it takes very long to calculate if we want to have real quality. If we want to have something real time, we need to switch the render engine to Eevee. So we're going there, and we're going to change render engine to Eevee. And it's going to take time to update and then to calculate the shader, but it will work, and we will have, well, nothing. First, you can see it's compiling the shaders. That can take some time. I mean that on certain project, it can take several minutes or several dozen of minutes. So be careful with that. For this one, it shouldn't take too long. But still, you had to wait for this number to go down. Again, you can see it here by showing the overlays. And even when it will be finished, it will look like nothing we want. So we have a lot of work to do, meaning that all the real time is the product of hard work. The difference between cycles and EV is EV require more work. That is why we started to work with cycles and then switch to EV. And then we will have to switch a lot of material, adjust some things, and do some trial and error. Okay, so I'm waiting for the remaining shader to be compiled, and then we will continue. Okay, it's done, and it doesn't look like much. I'm going to hit 0 to be the camera, and it looks like nothing is good and everything is wrong. So we will have to work on that to let it look good. Okay, the first thing is we have to make the window transparent. So I'm going back here, Shift Z to go to solid mode, and we're going to take a look here at our window. So by default, the windows, even though they have a reflective material, if we go to our slot glass here, I'm going to hit Home to see all the shader. As you can see, we don't need this one. As you can see, we have a shader which is refractive. We have here the refraction BSDF, but it looks like it doesn't work. You need to go to the material panel here and then go down. Make sure you're working on the glass. And as you can see, we have some blend mode and shadow mode. The shadow mode is the one which is going to let the light through. So let's switch shadow mode to one or the other. Actually, for this one, I'm just going to choose none so that it's just transparent to the shadow and let the light in. As you can see, it makes a huge difference because we now have some lights going inside the room. The light from our aerolite on the outside and the light from our sun. As you can see, they work both. If I untick this one, we can see the difference. Still, it doesn't look like anything because there is no bounce, meaning that the light doesn't bounce on the wall. So we have some areas that are just pitch dark. That's something we will take care of later. Okay, now the second problem is I don't see my outside through the glass. And for this, we have a few parameters to change again. If we see here, we have some settings. I'm going to change the blend mode from opaque to alpha blend. Still, it looks like it doesn't work. I'm going to choose here the screen space refraction. You can see something happening. We see the grid through, but we don't see our exterior. So I'm going outside here and take a look at the image. And we can see, we see something, but it's not the right landscape. It's the one with the light fall off. I'm going to change here the shader and I'm going to make a few adjustments. So here, material output, we're going to change to cycles, meaning this one is going to work only for cycles. Then I'm going to duplicate this one, make it work for EV. And very simply, we're going to plug here the emission to the surface. And now we have the proper color. So we have to be careful because certain features, such as the light path, are not really working with EV. And that's the case here. That's why we can have different material outputs for the different render engine. Okay, still we don't see through the window. And this one is really tricky. It's not a problem on the material of the glass, but on the material of the panel here, on our exterior. So let's go to the here, and we can see we have blend mode and alpha and shadow mode. Shadow mode, again, we don't need this, so let's go to none, so that it's not going to cast any shadow. And this blend mode, alpha blend, meaning it's going to not to be seen through an alpha, so we need to make it opaque. And now it's going to see through. Still, it doesn't work because we're not finished yet, even though we have taken our glass here. So let me choose the glass. We have changed our glass to alpha blend, so it should work, and we have made the screen space reflection on. We need to turn it on the render settings. So let's go there, render settings, then let's go to the screen space reflection, and we're still not finished. We need to activate the reflection. And at last, it's going to work. Now, if I go there, we will see through our window. So let's check if I haven't forgotten anything. So we are here on the blend mode, alpha blend. Let's change to alpha hashed. Actually, it did work. Just needed the shader to be compiled. So we can go back to alpha blend. And now we can see through our window. So if I go back here to 0 to this view, we see everything. There is one last thing missing. If you take a look here, there is no ceiling. Of course, because the ceiling, we just made the ceiling invisible. If we take a look at the room here, and let's go to the ceiling, we can see on the object properties, viewport display, we're on wire mode. And because this is a viewport display, and Eevee is actually a viewport renderer, because it's real time, it's the same as your viewport, meaning that the one on the right here is using Eevee as well. And this one is Eevee with all the texture. So if it's invisible here, it's going to be invisible on the left. So we need to change the display from wire to solid. Now it works. Let's go back to inside, 0. We do have some proper lighting on the ceiling. There's still one problem, as you can see here. We have this light leak. That's something very common too with Eevee, because here our ceiling is just a single plane. And we need to add thickness on it. So let's go to the modifier panel, and we're going to add a solidify. And the solidify, if I adjust the thickness, you will see that our light leak is going to disappear. But I don't want to do it this way because it's going to go inside. So let's put it inside. You will see inside. Outside is going to work as well. And the light leak is gone. Okay, so now everything is set up for our lighting. The good news is we don't have to change anything actually to our lighting, and all the hard work is going to be done through some additional object working with Eevee, and that's what we're going to do for the next step. But as you could see in this video, there were a lot of settings to change, but in the end it will be worth it. So let's add our GI. It's very easy. We're going to our light collection, make it active, and then we're going on this view. I'm going to switch off also the rendering here. Let's hit Alt to snap the view to orthographic, Shift Z to see through, and I'm going to Shift S and cursor to world origin. Okay, it set up our 3D cursor right here. Now I'm going to add Shift A. In light probe, we're going to use the irradiance volume. This is the object which is going to do everything. So let's go this way. I'm going to use the universal gizmo. Let's put it here, and we're going to resize it. And what we're looking for is the size of the smaller box. I want the smaller box to encompass everything in the scene. So let's move it this way, reduce, shift space to maximize everything here. It'll be easier to work with. And now we're going to move everything again. Let's go this way. Move it up. And then I'm going to change the scale again. Something like that. And make sure that everything is inside. Perfect. Okay, control space to go back here. And now we have our iodine volume. It's going to work. How does it work actually? Each point you can see here is going to sample the light and remember the lighting. So it's going to calculate the ray that go into the scene, bounce against the wall, and tell that this space is going to have this brightness. It's very simple. And if we go here to our object, we can see different settings. We're going to keep it this way. The basic resolution here, 4 by 4 by 4, is important. It means how many spheres we have. So what we can do maybe is change just on the x-axis to add a bit more sample this way. Okay, it doesn't need to be too thick, too dense, because it's going to lead to other problem. For this scene, which is very well lit, it should be enough. Okay, now we have this. We need to go to the render settings. We're going to our indirect lighting, and we can see a few options. Bake indirect lighting, that's what we're going to do in a while. Just before, you can see no light cache, because this is the radiance volume. We can take a look here. Diffuse bounces, let's go to at least 5, okay? Because it's going to be calculated and stored inside this object. You can have high different bounces to have better lighting. Everything here is going to tweak the resolution and the quality of your indirect lighting. Actually, the default settings are quite good, so we're going to leave them just as it is. Now I'm going to click here, Bake Indirect Lighting, and it's going to take a while to calculate everything, because it's going to store every sample of light inside the cube. It can take some time, so I will see you after a while. It's done. Now we can see we have 80 irradiance sample for 8 megabytes in memory. Now the magic is here. If you switch there, we can see we have our scene properly lit. And this is real time. If we just move inside, we can see it just works. So let's switch to Q, walk navigation, and I'm going to just see how it looks everywhere. And you can see it looks pretty good. It works. I guess we'll have to adjust this panel here to make it closer so that we don't see all the outside. But we can move inside the scene and see that the lighting is good. So it's going to calculate at every frame. As you can see, there is a lot of calculation and it's not really properly settling. But still, we can see that we just have our GI. So if we go to the other room, we can see it's not finished. That's because our irradiance map window is not going through there. So we don't need to see that. And of course, if we go outside, we will see those points here. This is where our irradiance volume is clipping. So you're not supposed to see this, of course. And inside, you can see everything is just the way it should. Okay, so escape to go back here. I'm going to hit 0 to go back to this view. So that's it. It's as easy as that. So what you could do is try to play with the irradiance volume here. If you go there to the option, you can try to add a little more resolution. You could also maybe try to play with the blur settings, and of course in the end go back here to indirect lighting and try to use other cube map size and all this option. But I can tell you it works already pretty good like that. Now we have to tweak several parameters to make everything look great, but that's already a good start. If we want to make it look better, we have several settings to change. So let's go here to Eevee. The first one, more important, is the sampling. As you can see, when I move my camera, we can see our shadow being refined over time. Those are the samples. So we have just 16 samples inside the viewport. Let's go to 64 at least. As you can see, it's going to be more refined, and the shadow start to look realistic. We could even go even further than that and put 128 for both. Now let's take care of the shadow. Let's go to the shadow, and we're going to use here the height, bit, depth. And here for the cube size, let's go to the highest quality, cascade side, which is the one from the directional shadow, our sun. Let's go also to the maximum. We'll have a better overview of all that. Also, I'm going to take my curtain and let's go to the material. And you can see here the blend mode. Let's change the shadow mode from opaque to alpha hashed. Alpha hashed is going to give us this nice shadow here. Now let's go back to our settings. I would like now to use a bit of ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is very important because it's going to add the shading you can see on the wall. So maybe we should try for that one of the backroom view. So I selected this camera, made it active, and now let's go 0 to see this view. Maybe here it'll be more obvious. So you can see here the corner are a bit blending into one another, and that's not what we want. Also, the object seems to hover. They don't really have contact on the ground. So the ambient occlusion is going to take care of that. I'm going to activate it, and instantly we can see it looks better. You can see before, after, and the ambient occlusion, so it's going to add this bit of shadow when objects are in contact with each other. It works also on this one, you can see, against the wall. If we increase the distance, it's going to be more blended, like you can see here. So I think we're better off with the distance, something like that. The factor is just the intensity of the occlusion. And you know you can go with a higher setting than this one. So from 1 to 2 or even 4. But as you can see, it's getting not, well, we lose the realism. So let's go back to 1, which is nicer. And the trace precision is how precise it's going to be. So let's make it higher, and we can leave it like that. Now let's take a look at the performance. We're going to turn on the high quality normals. Everything will be a bit better with that. If we go back to one of the view, let's go see the front window. I'm going now to activate here on the render settings the bloom. So the bloom is going to add this bloom over our object. And the intensity here, if I just increase the intensity, you can see the effect. The threshold is just going to tell you how soon it's going to do it. I think the default setting for the threshold is pretty good. So backspace here to go back to this threshold. Radius is going to be the radius of the glow. Maybe let's go this one. And for the color, maybe we could have a slight blue. Something like that. Okay, it looks already much better. But we didn't care of something very important. If we take a look at the scene, I'm going to go inside and let's use Q or walk navigation. And we take a look at the glass here. It doesn't look very good. Also, if we go, for example, here, you can see it doesn't reflect. This metal is not reflecting properly what's around. Same problem here for this glass. So we need to take care of the reflection. Also, if we look on the ground, we don't really see any reflection. So we're going to take care of that. And finally, here on the on our chair, we can see the reflection of the of our carpet, for example, but we don't really see the floor or the other object. So we're going to take care of that in the next video. So to have better reflection, we need to add an object. For example, here our glass doesn't look at all like it should. Let's go here to our light, make it the active composition, and then I'm going to Shift A, and let's go to the light prod and add a reflection cube map. This reflection cube map is going to appear here. So now I'm going to Shift right click. Let's see the overlay. Shift right click to put it on here our object. And now Shift S, and we're going to selection to cursor. Here our reflection cube map, let's go there. We're going to change from a sphere to a box. And this box is going to be the center reflection for the whole scene. So we can make it a bit smaller or larger like that. I think that's pretty good. So that it's going to take into account the wall. Okay, going to put one here. And the other object we're going to see is somewhere there. So I'm going to add Shift right click another one, Shift A, and let's add another reflection cube map. And this one is going also to be a box. So we have the second one, and maybe we're going to make it bigger too, like that. Okay, those two are enough. They're going to take a snapshot of everything around. They're going to take a photo of the 6 sides of the cube, and then they're going to project this snapshot onto the reflection. So it's going to look like our object is casting proper reflection and refraction. It's really a trick. It's not ray tracing, but really a trick of real-time rendering. So let's go now to our render properties. Let's go back to our indirect lighting, and now we can just bake cube map only. Those are the cube map. And here the cube map size, we can increase the resolution maybe to 1024. That should be enough because our objects are quite small and we're not going to see them very well. Okay, so bake cube map only. It's going to take a little time. Okay, it's done, and you can see the look of our glass and object have really changed. We can see it here. And maybe let's be the camera. You can see we have our reflection. And if I see, for example, detailed coffee table, now it looks the way it should. Let's see also the vase. And if we just move out of this, I'm going to see here our object. Let's zoom in. You can see we have the reflection of the world. It's not the black thing we had before. So everything now is casting proper reflection. It looks much better. You can see here on this object, we can clearly see what's behind us. Also, if we take a look, for example, here, we can see the reflection the other way. And I think we'll see, yes, now it really looks better. As you can see, we see the reflection of our ground and so on. And one funny thing, we can see the reflection of the chair itself because our cube map is right there. So maybe you should have created a smaller cube map here and another one here. But really, we won't see the difference. If we go back to our camera, 0, and let's select, for example, here our front window. As you can see, we don't really mind to see this reflection. It looks accurate enough. It's not, but still, it's pretty good. So we have proper reflection everywhere. There is still one missing, which is the reflection of the ground. To have our lighting complete, we need one more step, which is the reflection plane. This is for our ground. If we take a look here at a ground, you're going to see it looks pretty good, but let's do a few things. I'm going to select the carpet here and just hide it using H. Okay, now I'm going to take our object here, and this is the ground. I'm going to unplug here the roughness and set the roughness to 0. So now it's properly reflecting the ground. We could even unplug here the normal. So you see, it's really like a big reflection. And what we can see is that our reflection is going to stop as soon as we don't see what's outside. This is the limitation of our screen space reflection. If we go back here, we can see we have a screen space reflection. If I just deactivate it, you will see it works not that good. And if you want to have a better reflection overall, we need to add on the ground a reflection plane. So I'm going to shift right click to put our 3D cursor right here. We can just see the overlay for a while. And now I'm going to add on the light collection, Shift A reflection plane. So this one, I'm going to put it on the top, and we're going to see here its settings, and control space. Let's increase the size to make sure that it covers everything. So let's go there. Let's increase the size so that it's going to cover everything. Okay, we can make it slightly larger. Okay, and from this angle here, we can see we have several indicators. So control space to go back here. And now this reflection plane, if I'm going here and move it up and down, you will see an effect. And you can see if you move it up slightly, now you have proper reflection everywhere. And you can set here the distance. So if I increase the distance, this is how far it's going to look for the reflection. And our fall off here is also going to work. And as you can see, we see everything now. We have much better reflection than before. You can see here from this angle, for example, without the reflection plane, it looks more accurate, more refined. Okay, so let's go back to our ground, and we're going to plug back the normal and here the roughness. Now we have proper reflection. We can see here on the ground, also here for our chair. Let's unhide now our carpet. So I'm looking for it. Carpet, wait, here it is. And that's it. Now we have our lighting set up for everywhere. We can try the different cameras. Here, our background. And it looks just as good, or almost as cycle. The detail here is very good. On the vase, too. The front window. And here from this overhead. Okay, so we have everything working, but we can make it even look better. That is using the compositor. And this will work also with cycles. So in order to do this, we need to have the very last Blender, 3.5. And then we're going to have our render here, and then here on this window, we're going to change to compositor. We're going to use node. And we will make that appear. Okay, so here our composite. is the final result. And let me show you just a simple thing. We're going to add a Shift A, an exposure node. I'm going to put it right here. And now if I increase here, we will see nothing unless we go there on your shading option and activate the compositor for the camera. And now you can see it's working. We have an exposure value. So what's interesting here is to use it for all the stuff that the compositor can do. It's going to work in real time. So for example, we're going to replace the bloom from Eevee. I'm going to switch it off and use something else, like for example, the glare node. So glare, if I put it here, we now have some streaks or some ghost or simple star working in real time. The fog glow is not compatible. If we go back to ghost, for example, what we can do is change here the mix. So this is 100%, and if we go mix the other way, it's going to lower the value. And we can change the iteration, the color modifier, and so on, the threshold, so that it's going to give us another settings. What we could do is do some compositing magic. For example, what happens if I take a blur node? I'm going to put it right here. We're going to take the X and Y together. I'm going to increase the result. This is going to give us that blur result. And now I'm going to use here a mix node. I'm going to add it here, and then we're going to mix it with the original image. And then if we go to add now, we're going to add the result on top of the other. If I decrease the intensity, we have here our image. So I'm going to switch those two. This one will be on the bottom. And now if I just increase our factor, I'm going to add almost the very same bloom as we used here. This one is even more controllable, and we can do some stuff with it. So for example, here I'm going to lower the intensity, and I don't think I would use the glare anymore. Or maybe we could use here just some light, some streaks here. Let's increase the quality high, and this gives us this result. At any time, you can use M to mute the node to see what's going on. So you can see here before and after. And that's just a start. Actually, you can do a lot of things with this now. For example, we could use some vignette. Let's use here an ellipse mask. I'm going to put it here, and let's connect it to the composite. So this is the result. I'm going to increase the size, the width, and the height to have something like that. Now let's add another blur node. I'm going to increase here the X and Y a lot, something like that. Perfect. Now we're going to add these to mix this result with all those things here. So let's use another mix. And we're going to add this one here, this one here. Let's change to multiply and plug the result to our composite. So now I've just added a vignette on the corner of our image. So again, we're going to switch those two to control the intensity. This is without vignette, this is with. What we could do is also add some distortion. So let's add Shift A, distortion, lens distortion. And this one should be before the vignette. So maybe we're going to add it right after the glare. For example, here on with our exposure. Now, if I just distort the image, you can see the result. So here, in order to work, we need to add some very slight value. So I'm going to just give a little bit of distortion and dispersion. Dispersion is just going to blur to create some kind of lens blur on the background. So let's go to something very small like that. 0.1. We can see before, after, M. And last but not least, we just could color grade our image. So this one is very easy. We're going to do it here. Here I'm going to shift right click to add some node. So that using this one here, I'm going to take this one and plug it back. We can just delete this one. And right here, right after the render layer, what we could use is the color balance. Color balance is the node which is going to give us a lot of control on the tone mapping of the image. So what we could do here is this one is going to control the shadow. I could use the lift, and if I use the value, we can see we're going to densify the shadows or not. So what we could do is just add a little more light on the shadow. And here on this gamma here, we could go the opposite. And this one is going to control the highlight. I want to have a very bright image, so maybe let's go there. And then maybe we could add some color mapping to this value. So here I'm going to search for a color which is more in the deep in the shadow like that. So let's go this way. Let's change the color correction. And what we could do is again change the lift and go this way, for example. And as you can see, it's going to color grade the image. So we could do the same thing here using our image. So maybe I would go here to the highlight and I'm going to go in the blue value. So it's going to add the blue value on top of the one I have added here. And maybe we're going to change again the gain. Make it a bit brighter like that. Okay, and this one is, I think, nice like that. And here we can change the value again. We could use M to see before, after. You can see it really changed the scene. And in the end here we have our exposure. We can just increase or decrease. We could put it just before, just after. It really depends on what you want to do. As soon as we leave our image, we will go back to the original light. If you want to see it all the time, we could just change here from camera to always. So always, it's always going to be on. And that can be very interesting to just tweak the lighting for different settings. For example, we're going to see the back room here. I'm going to hit 0. This way here. And for this image, maybe I will change our color balance or just disable it. It really depends on what you want to do. Let's go back to our front window because I just like this value. We could also maybe try to get the original bloom on, but I think this is too much bloom. Actually, we're doing it here with the blur here. So that's very interesting because we could add other effects. I just wanted to show you how it works. And remember that you can do that with cycles to have some amazing result in the end.